All right, glad to have you back on Business Nigeria. Now we have to go straight to Abuja, where we'll be speaking to Professor Ken Ife. He is a development economist looking at developments around the crude market and what's been playing out regards to the capturing of President of Venezuela. Professor Ken Ife, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Business Nigeria.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I think we should start with all of the geopolitical issues surrounding this development and how it affects the commodities market, now in focus, crude oil market.
Yeah, well, in terms of geopolitics, we'll begin with, first of all, the world policeman has committed an offense, and he's also going to be the prosecutor and the judge. So what are you going to find? You're going to end up probably finding jungle justice. But let's go to the geopolitics. Really and truly, U.S. empire is in decline because of a de-dollarization agenda. The USD has been the major thing that has propped up the empire for so long. Now, so many things have happened and have marked the inevitable dive into irrelevance of dollar in the present scheme of things. You know how Russia was persecuted by seizing over 300 billion of their reserve. And you also know that America owes over $34 trillion, GDP $26 trillion, world trade $33 trillion. But America is never going to pay their debt. All they do is just print more dollars and call it quantitative easing. So in the 60s, when they discarded gold standard, that was where inevitably we were all heading to. But when you now come and start seizing people's reserves, it is sent alarm bell everywhere. So people are now beginning to feel unsafe to hold those. So that's part of it. But then you now try to use coercion, to use trade war, tariff to coerce countries back online. That didn't work. In fact, when he did that, it exposed the biggest weaknesses in America. America has never considered national security in terms of the impact of supply chain disruption on national security. They've never considered that. And they've never considered economic security from the point of view of supply chain disruption. They only saw a bit of it during the COVID, but they didn't realize how destructive it would be until they went into this global tariff. Now, only one thing that China did, which is stop supply of rare earth mineral, had repercussion on the Russian war, because Ukraine couldn't get the ammunition they needed because there was nothing to produce them from. Then Israel had to cut down an abrupt war to 10 days, 12 days, because of shortage of supplies. So the 150% tariff that he was landing on China had to crash down to 20% just to stop it. So that is what supply chain repair has done. And then the next thing is to go to energy crisis, energy war, energy control, and that is sheer force, brutality, fiscal brutality. That's what is going to characterize that. So all these rules we have in UN and UN Security Council, all those rules, they're just there for convenience. A new signal has been sent that it is the use of force. And then people are just going to say, sit back and watch. How does it affect you as a country? How does it affect you? So that's a new sheriff in town right now.
And we see the international oil companies, the likes of Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and all coming up saying the U.S. didn't carry them along before going ahead with all of this. I'm concerned about how this will play up in that market where we've seen that flip-flop already in the crude oil market. Will this add more? And what does it mean for a country like Nigeria? It's also an oil-producing country.
I'm really happy that ConocoPhillips and the other one, they have to deny.
Yes, they said that.
If they don't deny, other countries will take action against them, and you can see expropriation.
Okay.
But Trump has to use this as an excuse, because as a matter of fact, all these things that Trump was doing to them about restrictions and all of that, they have judgment of over $1 billion to Philip. Not ConocoPhillips. ConocoPhillips is about $10 billion. Is the other one, the Mobile? That's the one that they are owing to over $1 billion. But also, don't forget that in America, in the western coast, southern coast, You have refineries that were designed on crude, they were designed on the Venezuelan heavy sour crude, and then they had problems. So they also waiting for this oil to come. And then also America is facing a situation where nobody wants to hold the American dollar. Not many people want to hold that. So all this borrowing and borrowing is going to face the judgment day. Because what kills many empires, just go and look at every empire, Spain, Britain, Italy, look at all these empires. It is when they overstretch themselves and their defense spending gets out of hand, and then they borrow and borrow and borrow. And when they can't pay their debt, then they begin to crumble. And that is the stage where America is now. And America doesn't want to go down without a fight. So you've seen the fiscal force coming in now. And from here, Venezuela, they will go to Colombia. They'll avoid Cuba for now. Then they may go to Mexico. They may go to Greenland because Denmark can't stop them. Denmark threatens that if you come here, then that's the end of NATO. But the end of NATO has already come because Germany is talking to France, they're talking to Russia because they're getting 40% discount on the gas. They're working because they guys they know where we're going to. We're in very, very troubled waters. And of course, you can't do this in Taiwan. You can't try this in Taiwan. The whole equation has changed. So it is only your neighbor, immediate neighbor, that you can do this to. But you have to be very careful where you go because there's mutual assured destruction, which is what Russia said. Russia said to Europe, look, you guys have seized my money, and then you are using it to persecute the war, to give arms to these guys. If you want a nuclear war, we are ready for it. It's not a very small signal. But let's look at the wider implication, because what happens is, as we speak now, the projection on oil price, crude price for this whole of this year is between $52 to $58. And that is based on 4 million barrels a day surplus to requirement. But that is going to go to 10 million barrels a day, even before the end of this year, when all these companies come in to take out oil. Venezuela has 303 billion barrels of oil. So they are the number one in the world. So there is plenty of it. And it's cheaper for America to drill those than to do shale oil drill. That's very, very expensive. So what will happen is that there's going to be a lot of crude coming into the market. But of course, Russia is discounting crude. Iran is discounting crude. So the prediction now is that it's going to be below $50. And that's a problem for Nigeria, because Nigeria can only balance their books when our crude is between $60 to $70. And we have not prepared for $50 or less. The budget, they're still talking about $65.85. Look at that. So I don't want to talk about that budget because it makes me angry, So we have to prepare for the rainy day. And it is just not far from now. The only saving grace is to just thank God that Dangote has come in with his capacity and with oil refining sovereignty, and the $50 billion is going to refining capacity in Ondo State. Bua is doing 200,000 barrels. Another guy is coming in Lagos, for modular refining. So Nigeria is ripe and ready for refining hub for Africa. So government will lose revenue. You won't even get anything from crude this time around. Whatever they are losing, they will get it from refining capacity, provided NUPRC and NMDPRA play their ball according to the PIA rule. Give the crude to those who have local refining capacity before exporting anything. You won't even find buyers at those kind of prices because they have to factor in their cost of transportation. Now, the second thing is that the president, I'm glad Shegu is on this program. Shegu, man, should tell the president to sign the bill sitting on his table for over 6 months. He has a bill of mandatory 30% value addition. If you don't have a law that creates a floor for value addition, foreign investors are not going to come for industrialization. It's only domestic investors that will be investing. And you are going to be fighting traders who are importing. So he has to put this floor. That means that, and I'm glad that over 50% of the people drilling onshore are Nigerians. So this is the time you get this act out so that we will stop worrying our land. I've also asked, put 5% upstream tax for non-DCO compliance. For those who are not supplying the crude to local refiner, let them pay tax of 5% to government in dollars. So this is the thing. You got to take this. It is only tax that touches companies' pocket. That's why the 15% ad valorem tax on import of fuel will touch their pocket. That's the only way you can comply, get compliance. So please get this serious. This is a very serious thing, because if you don't force this right now, then you are going to have a situation where the crude will collapse, the budget is completely out of shape, and then you're going to have recession thrown onto this country. When we have the capacity, we are building the capacity to refine and manufacture.
Now, Prof, let's look at the issue of production and that budget which you talked about. 1.8 million barrels per day is the projection. And we know that we are yet to get to that point. Now, you're talking about refineries operating in country, and they would definitely need supply of crude. That's where my question now comes in. Do you think that ramping up production is something to be done urgently to increase what we produce at the moment? Or what do you think is the way out to address this issue of promoting this local refining? Because we still are underproducing, considering the figures that we have from the relevant agencies.
Now, there's going to be very, very stiff competition on upstream investment, because all these companies that are going back to Venezuela, you've mentioned 3 of them, they are not going to be investing anywhere else again. They are going to be heading to Venezuela to go and revive their old fields and all that stuff, rather than going into other green fields. So that's number one. So we are going to have shortage of investors in the upstream. So whatever we have now, let's do it to increase ramp-up production to 2 million barrels per day. Because the capacity that we need, if Dangote goes in the next 2 years to 1.4 million barrels a day, BUA is already 200, will be 200,000 barrels. People investing $50 billion in Ondo will need less than 500,000 barrels. So you can see that it will not even be enough for local refining. And even then, it's cheaper for you to refine locally produced crude and add value and make money and create refined product than to go and import from outside. And then it's even cheaper for those who are trying to export this under $15 to sell them to the Nigerian refining capacity rather than start finding where to. So it is a marriage in heaven. But the fact of the matter is that everybody have to play their part. And this new NMDPRA should be mindful of the iniquities of the past administration, and then go and implement the PIA law. The PIA law is very explicit on all this, so that Nigeria can we can escape the problem we are going to face in the next 6 months. The budget chaos you have seen last month is nothing compared to what we are going to see in the next 6 to 9 months, because you are entering election year. The only invoice they will pay is the one they say is from presidency, because these are political people. They want their election. So why are you creating a bogus budget that ends up stripping out resources from the private sector? The banks have problem. They already have their CRR raised from 30 to 50%. They have 30% liquidity ratio, 80%. They haven't got anything, only 20% to lend. And CBN will come on open market operation to mop up that money. So the bank hasn't got any money to give to manufacturers. And even if you're giving it to them, it's for what? For 35%? So the manufacturers haven't got anything to invest. The small money they have, they're going to use it to buy treasury bills. So why is government spending 65% of borrowing on domestic borrowing, which is crowding out private sector investment? Can't you have pity on the manufacturing sector of this country? How can't you not have it? So you must move for export-led growth strategy. It is when you are focusing on natural resources, adding value to them, and then exporting them. That's how you remove 400 million out of poverty, which is what China did, 200 million out of poverty, which is what Indonesia, Malaysia, and South Korea did. So this is not rocket science. We will say it, and I'm glad the man is here. We say what it is. Politicians can do what they like, but don't come back and cry, because you have just been exposing your Achilles heel. We could do better as a country. We can do better as a country.
Now, Prof, let me also ask you, because I know analysts are watching Iran's reaction to this development too. How do you see that also affecting all of these issues with other countries, major producers and buyers of crude, particularly like Iran?
Before you even call Iran, Why don't you talk about Saudi Arabia? Why don't you talk about Kuwait?
UAE.
Because in the mid-70s, when OPEC was formed, America came down. Remember, the American Secretary of State was threatening to attack. Then they decided to go and make a deal with the Saudi Arabia, all those areas that, look, America will give you protection as long as crude is sold and bought in dollars. That's the petrodollar. But what has happened to that? Saudi Arabia, these people are scampering for safety now because they cannot rely on American protection anymore. Israel is just behaving anyhow in that region. And then Iran is going nuclear. And then they have to run to Pakistan for nuclear shield. And they're now selling selling crude in other currencies other than dollar. So that area means that the jury is out on the future of dollar. So what would you say? So Iran is a small problem. Because in the case of Iran, the issue of Iran-Russia coordinate, Iran-Russia to India, that channel for flowing of crude means that NATO is irrelevant. It is so irrelevant that Germany had to decamp to go and do a deal with Russia. And this man knows it. Donald Trump knows it, that this whole NATO thing doesn't make for. And you know that the man admires Putin. President Trump, he admires Putin. That's why he wasn't criticizing him on marching into Crimea, on a Donbass region, doing that because he's going to do the same, which is what he's done. But what he's trying to do is to get access to rare earth minerals in Ukraine and then stop the bloodshed. That's what he wanted, so that he can get an award. What do you call this? A Nobel Peace Prize, that he's sorted that. That's what he's interested in. But he's doing exactly what Moscow is doing in his sphere of influence.
Finally, Prof, let's do an overview, on an outlook, I beg your pardon, for the entire industry, considering all of this developments that we see in the oil and gas industry. I am concerned about it because Nigeria is still dependent on crude for revenue. So as much as we try to diversify our economy, what, in your thoughts, would work for pricing, for our budgeting? What do you think is conservative enough for us to place on our budget? That's one. Then on the other side, the entire drill, baby drill, of course, that's been Trump's, that's what he said that all the while. But we still see that, countries, African countries like Nigeria, Angola, and all of us are doing pretty well in the oil market. We still have a role to play in all of this. What plays out in the market in 2026, aside all of these geopolitical issues that we've talked about earlier?
Well, the oil prices would drop below the projected benchmark.
64 is not feasible at all.
It doesn't even exist. It doesn't exist because it's a disaster waiting to happen. The projections are $52 to $58 for the whole of this year. So if you like, you can make your own $90. The fact is that it is not going to go beyond those. Now, the reality is that with Trump coming in, it's going to be under $50. So what are you budgeting? You begin by bringing it to about 55 and then hope to go down to 50 so that you can even have a chance. And then so that you can face the reality, because what is the point having a bloated budget and creating a scramble in an election year? What's the purpose? What's the purpose? You just now, it will not be survival of the fittest. Only people that come from the presidency will get their money paid and this and that. It's going to get worse. It will be dog eat dog. So why are you doing that? So have a realistic budget and look at buffers. And unfortunately, you don't even have buffers. When Obasanjo was leaving office, he was leaving us with $62 billion of foreign reserve and $22.5 billion excess crude account. You have no excess crude account because you decided to raise your benchmark to prevent you from having any accretion to the reserves or the excess crude account. So where are your buffers? These are where you have your buffer. Is it just this 51 billion projected by central bank for their forex? You can blow that money in 6 months. And this is what they're going to try to do, to go and destabilize the great job that the central bank has done. So oil price is going to come down. Competition for investment is going to be tough for our upstream. We need to continue our target to get extra 1 million, and then we have to focus on local refining and stop this jamboree of trying to export and bring this import, and you have to scrap all this import. Because we have now more capacity to prevent this, because that's draining the revenue, the dollars that you need. You can't you need to import substandard fuel, sell up that NNPC retail end. It's not doing anything with it, and get people to take over, give it free, give out those refineries free to the management buyout and all these oil majors. Let them take the thing and go and do it, because government should not be spending any more money on those. So we know what we need to do. It is whether the political will is there to do it. And we have a strong manufacturers action group that keeps on telling the government what needs to be done. And this economy, it depends on what they could do, because the import dependency that has characterized our decline and sustainable and unsustainable growth is because of import dependence. So you need to tackle it. The only way you tackle it is by having export-led growth industrialization strategy. And then you have a robust organization that drives this. All the resistance we have had, but for positive growth, for example, European Partnership Agreement, it was man that stopped this. And I was still on my seat in ECOWAS, where we told the ECOWAS president, no, this is not going to be good for Nigeria. All our manufacturers said will melt down. So that's why we never signed it. How can you sign an agreement that wants you to be only an exporter of raw material, and then they will take 80% of your market for import? Which means you don't even want us to trade with Africans or to trade with India, China, Japan, Brazil. This is not, we know what the policy is, we know what the strategy is, we know what we need to do. If you want to play politics with the future of our country and allow some officers that are incompetent and don't understand the law and doesn't want to apply the law and have integrity issues to run it, well, all good, all well and good. We'll just watch. We'll still be on your program talking and analyzing it.
I think we need to have another conversation around the Petroleum Industry Act because there's been that argument in some quarters that there's been a bit of selective implementation of some aspects of that law. But you're talking now about proper implementation of the law, and I'm sure a lot is cut out for the NUPRC and the NMDPRA in the days ahead. We'll have that conversation again, Prof, because I know there's a lot you have to say around that space. But I must thank you so much, as always, for your support and your contributions to the program. Thank you, Professor Kenife, Development Economist. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.